top-down mixing, the secret sauce. So today I'm going to talk about what top-down mixing actually is, the pros and cons of it, how you can do it. We're going to jump into Pro Tools and I'm going to show you some examples, how I set up my top-down mixing on my mix bus, etc. I'm Colt Capperrune. Thank you guys for stopping by for another video. So top-down mixing is something that I've been doing for probably about half of my 18-year career. I've well over 1,000 songs mixed using top-down mixing. It's by a huge amount my preferred method of mixing. And there's not a lot of info out there on this, and so I thought this would be a great video. So what is top-down mixing? Top-down mixing is a technique in which you start the mix with your mix bus or your master bus, whatever you like to call it. And you would set up your EQ and your compression and all of the things, and you would adjust everything on your mix bus first before you touch any of the individual tracks at all. So you would make broad EQ adjustments to shape the overall tone of the song and get your bus compression going, etc. So let's talk cons for a second. The only con of this approach that I can come up with is if you're newer in your career, in your path in music production, it can be easy to overcook bus compression. Bus compression, I'm very heavy-handed in my bus compression in the grand scheme of things. I will very commonly hit 4 or 5 dB of gain reduction on my mix bus on just about every mix unless I need it to be soft and very natural sounding. Now, I'll admit happily that that is very heavy-handed compression, but I do think that it's easy to overcook the compression if you're not used to this technique or if you're not used to mixing into bus compression on your mix bus. And in my opinion, that's about the only con that I can come up with for this technique. So the pros are the reasons why I do it in every single song. Now in my Magic is in the Mid-Range mix tutorial video that I posted a couple videos ago, one of the things that I discussed in that video, and I also discussed it in my cutting versus boosting EQ video that was just 2 videos I think, is that one of my goals when I mix is getting to the finish line in as few moves as possible. What's the fewest amount of EQ moves or compression moves? What's the fewest number of moves I can make to get to the finish line that I'd like to get to? Now, there's a few reasons why this is my approach. The first reason is because I believe personally that the fewer EQ moves I can make within a song, the better the song actually sounds. So I mix for a ton of other producers in addition to mixing my own productions. And one of the things that's very interesting is when I get songs to mix, most songs have an overall vibe about them. Most of the tracks are either harsh or they're muddy or whatever, but they all sound similar and they all need similar processing. It's very rare that I get a track to mix that like half the tracks are real dark and muddy and half the tracks are real bright and harsh. That almost never happens. And so instead of going through, let's say I get a song to mix that's kind of muddy and dark sounding, instead of putting a high shelf on most every channel on the entire song, I'm going to put a high shelf on my mix bus and I'm going to eliminate dozens, or in some songs, hundreds of EQ moves and replace it with one single high shelf on my mix bus. And so I think that using less EQ points to accomplish basically the same goal makes my mixes sound a lot better. Now, the second reason why getting to the finish line in as few moves or as short amount of time as possible is something that I focus on is for ear fatigue. The more time you spend mixing a song, the less fresh your perspective is and the easier it is to get lost in some details that maybe won't actually make the song better. And so throughout my 18-year career, the faster I've become at mixing, simultaneously, the better my mixes have become, and I know it's because my skill set has grown, but it's also because as I work very quickly through a song, I'm just reacting to my gut. I'm not overthinking things. I'm hearing something that needs done, I'm doing it and moving on to the next thing. So mixing in as few moves as possible keeps my perspective fresh and keeps my creativity alive. Okay, so let's jump into Pro Tools and I'm going to show you guys exactly how I set this up and exactly how I do it. Okay, so before we jump into Pro Tools, I want to make a few things crystal clear here. One, I'm not telling you guys how to EQ something. That's not what this video is about. I'm not trying to convince you that the EQ moves that I make sound better than it did before them. This is just to show you the technique. I'm not trying to tell you how to compress something. I'm not even trying to tell you how to set up your mix bus. I'm not going to be level matching anything because that's genuinely not how I mix. I came up on a console, so I don't level match stuff while I'm mixing. So you may not even like the sound of what I'm about to do, but that is completely besides the point. The point of this video is to show you guys how to do top-down mixing, like the technique of top-down mixing, and then you can use whatever EQ you want. You can cut and boost, you can compress or not compress, you can use whatever EQ moves that you want on your own songs. This is just to show you how to do it. So now that we've gotten all the disclaimers out of the way for the haters and the naysayers, let's get to this. Okay, so this is a piece of music that I put together quite a few years ago as a demo for a guitar amp company. You guys that have been following the channel for any length of time, you know that it's difficult to find music to work on, to do these videos with, that I won't get a copyright strike. So there's no vocals in this one. Technique will be exactly the same. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do is get kind of a rough fader balance going, and I wanna hit my mix bus at about the level that I would hit it normally by the end of the mix. Okay, so let's do that now. Here we go. Okay, so rough balance in there. Let's see how hard this is hitting my mix bus over here where it says master right here. Okay, so we're clipping a little bit, so we're gonna pull everything down just a little bit here. Okay. Okay, so now that I have a very rough fader balance set up, the first thing I'm gonna do is throw in an EQ here. So we're gonna use our FabFilter Pro Q3. This is one of my more favorite EQs. And to me, before I even play this, before I even look at anything on this EQ, to me, this song feels a little dark and it feels like it lacks a little mid-range. So we're gonna start there. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna start with a high shelf, about 10K-ish, couple dB, 3 dB, let's go less than that. Somewhere about there. Also, I feel like this could use some like 1K, 1.5K. Okay, to me that's a way better starting point. Not level matched, but we're gonna A-B this here. Okay, so that is where I would start. The whole song sounded a little dark to me, and so on my mix bus, I did a high shelf to brighten up all of the tracks all together, and it felt like it could use a little mid-range, and so I boosted a little, what is that, about 1K, and to me, this sounds way better. So the next thing that I would do is set up my mix bus compression. Now, I use hardware for this. I'll have to throw in like some video on top of this video of my actual bus compressor. But so we're gonna bring in our bus compression here, hardware, and so we're gonna go insert 9 and 10. Cool, and that's hitting about right already. It's exiting, the level going out the converter is exactly where I want it. The level, so I mix through a pair of Cappy hiders, and then the Cappy hiders go into a Serpent SB4001, back into Pro Tools. So all that sounds really good, and the levels that it's all hitting at is about where I'd like it in the finished product, and so that sounds great. Let's go back to this EQ for a second. I'm gonna go ahead and put a high pass filter on this because the sub bass on this kick drum is really, really thick. So we're gonna high pass this somewhere around 20, 25 hertz. Cool. Okay, so without bus processing, here we go. And then with it, now, yes, I know there's a jump in volume, and again, I'm not level matching because that's not how I mix. level match if you would like to do it when you're doing this, but this is already way more polished and way closer to a finished product in my opinion. Okay, so we're gonna leave our mix bus there. Sometimes I do more than this, sometimes I do less than this, but this is where I'm gonna leave it for this example. So then in terms of top-down mixing, we've got our mix bus set up and we're good there. So the next top down, so top and then the next notch down would be our buses. So in this song I have a parallel drum bus set up, and so that's going to be our next level of priority. We're going to do drum bus. Now on my drum buses I will very commonly do just like a pull tech, and then we're going to do like some 10K and some 100 hertz. Okay, and then we're going to copy this because I'm running parallel drum bus here. We're going to copy that over to the parallel. Cool, and then I also run hardware parallel drum compressor. It's a Tube Tech LCA2B, so we're going to patch that in. And then I commonly will run like some saturation on the other one. I really like this True Iron plugin. I don't know how to say these guys' names. This Kazrog, I guess. Kazrog, True Iron. It's unbelievable saturation plugin. It just models like transformers, and I really like it a lot. So then let's take a listen to that. So now we're hitting our mix bus a little hard now, so I'm going to pull these drum bus faders down. Cool. So now my drum bus is set up. Okay, so then from this point, I've not touched any of the individual tracks at all yet. So now that I've got my master bus, my mix bus, and my other buses in the song set up, then I would move to individual tracks. Okay, so now you've watched this far and you've seen me work on nothing but the full frequency spectrum. I've done a lot of work in the low end and a lot of work in the top end. And I know some of you who did watch my Magic is in the Mid-Range video are thinking, but Colt, I thought you only focused on the mid-range first. And if you haven't seen my Magic is in the Mid-Range video, I'll link it in the description below. It's a really good mix tutorial, so I highly recommend if you haven't seen it to go check it out. This is as far as I'll go. So right now I've been working on this song for 5 minutes. In real time, when I'm not filming and talking to a camera, it would be much, much faster than 5 minutes actually. And so while I'm doing this top-down technique, while I'm doing my mix bus and my buses, EQ and compression, I will work on the full frequency spectrum. Why is that hard to say? And then once I've gotten all my bus processing done, then I do switch over to this mindset of just focusing on just the mid-range from that like 200 to 4K hertz range, and then I will finish the song, almost finish the song that way. This is like the first 2 or 3% of the mix, and then I'll spend the next 90% of the mix to focus on just the mid-range using my NS10s and my Oratone 5Cs, and you go watch the mid-range video and you'll get a better grasp on that. But so I'll spend like the next 90% of the mix working on just the mid-range, and then the last 6 or 7% of the mix, then I'm focusing on just the low end and just the top end, making sure the very bottom end, like 100 hertz and below of the bass and the synthesizers and the kick drum and all that stuff, make sure all that's working together nicely. And then the very, very top end, is the vocal airy enough, or is the guitar is jangly enough, or whatever lives like above that 4K range. And so I do spend almost the entire time mixing focusing on just the mid-range. I do start with this bus processing using the full frequency spectrum. Hope that helps you guys. This is my preferred method by a huge amount. I really prefer to work this way. So try it out on your own mixes and experiment with different ways to approach this and see if it helps you. I hope you guys have an awesome Christmas, and I'll see you in the next one. Oh, don't forget to like. Give me a thumbs up and smash that subscribe and the bell next to the subscribe tab, and drop me a comment. I'd love it if you would share this video with your friends if it helped you. Okay, I think we're done now. Peace.